Yani haftanak.
Hello and welcome back to Football Kentron, the only English language podcast dedicated to Armenian football. I am your host Adam, and I am joined here by the usual suspects, Chadens and Armen. It's been a while, gentlemen. How are you?
We're back! Woo!
We're back. We're
Yeah.
back for our last episode of this awful year that is 2021. So we are going to be wrapping up a lot of things. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let us get straight into it. We will be starting in the Armenian Premier League and the Bet Cup. The Armenian Premier League has been extremely interesting this season, and as we suspected, and as we've kind of talked about, it's getting a lot more competitive, right, Chadens?
Yeah, from how we started from the start of the season and how we ended up here now, it's completely different story. Completely different story. Like right before the call, we were just saying how Alashkert is actually winning games right now, all of a sudden, and they're sitting in fifth place.
They're sitting in fifth place. They have 5 wins in a row. But I don't think we can talk about the APL without mentioning the top 3 teams, who are teams that maybe we expect 2 out of the 3. One of them is a little bit of a surprise, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the team in first place for a minute. Ararat Armenia. They, so far in the 15 matches played, have won 13, drawn 1, and only lost once. They have a plus 24 goal differential, and they're on 40 points. Now, for context for listeners, Alashkert won the league last year on 46 points after 23 games. So it looks like Ararat Armenia is going to absolutely crush that record. But not far behind them in second place on 32 points is Punic, who have 10 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses, and a plus 9 goal difference. Punic has been, I would say, maybe the side that everyone's silently rooting for, because they're, they're a good team without their they do have some flaws, and I'm sure we'll discuss that. And in third place, which is I'd say probably the team that all 3 of us would like to see in European competition next year, is Ararat Yerevan, who is of course managed by Chakchan. They have 9 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses on 30 points with a plus 14 goal difference. That rounds out the top 3, and it is looking like Ararat Armenia may actually run away with the title, but we're looking at a possibility of having Ararat Armenia, Punic, and Ararat Yerevan in European competition. What are your thoughts on that, Armen? How would you be happy if it's those 3 teams plus whoever wins the cup, which we'll get to that?
As long as Ararat, as both Ararats make Europe, I'll be that's a start. I'll be somewhat happy and content and satisfied, because the 2 Ararats play great, honestly. Very different, because Ararat Armenia is deadly. They if they smell blood, however it comes, even if they play bad or good, they're gonna go for it. They're gonna go for the kill. On the other hand, Ararat Armenia is, in my opinion, the team that plays the best, but kind of underperforms in terms of results. They don't get as many results as they should, and that's why they've been slipping to third place behind Punic now. But we're gonna talk about the matchup between Punic and Ararat. Maybe Ararat Yerevan can change their luck for the better.
Yeah, I just think this kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, and the thing that we've honed in on when it comes to Ararat Yerevan is their defense, which I think if you have a aging Hrad Mukoyan as your anchor central defender, you're gonna let in goals, and that's is very much their issue right now. And I think if they can solve that, and by solve that I mean get some good Armenian defenders like Artur Kartashian, I think he would have been a revelation for them, but of course he's not going there. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we're gonna talk Mikoyan and Ararat's defense and of course Kardashian in a little bit.
Yeah, so
don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, so I think that would have worked out. But in the bottom half of the table, we have Van Noravank and Bekma rounding out the bottom, and I think this comes as a bit of a shock. I would say we're actually down to only 9 teams now in the league because FC Sevan has withdrawn from the league. It's kind of been a focal point so far of the season, and a lot of the players from Sevan are now going to other clubs in the APL. But not having Sevan compete is going to, of course, affect the table. And now the bottom place, instead of being directly relegated, is actually going to be playing in a relegation playoff, which as of now, it looks like it's Bekma, who only have 2 wins so far this season. I'm hoping it's not them. I actually want them to stay up. I think it's actually crucial for our development that they stay up.
They could stay up.
I think they will. I see Noravank getting relegated. But we'll see. If Bekma could string together 2-3 wins in a row, I think they would have saved themselves.
I mean, bro, 1 minute to discuss Bekma because they have 6 points, right? 2 wins. Mm-hmm. Both wins came in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, for 3 or 4 months they were winless and pointless, and all of a sudden they're within reach of both Noravank and Van.
Yep.
Also, side note, by the way, not unimportant at all, both Van and Noravank will be playing the Armenian Cup semifinals in April. So that would give you, if you're a Bekma, like the whole month of March to catch up, because Van and Noravank are going to be speculating a bit with trying to win the cup.
God, I hope they don't. I hope they don't.
They won't. They won't win it.
They should.
Being realistic, but they are having their attention split up, like it or not. So Bekma can really capitalize on that.
Just rounding out this Armenian Premier League, I don't think we can talk about being halfway through the season without having a player to highlight. And we can each pick a different player. I just have one player here that I think has been the standout by far from any player, but feel free, Chadens and Armen, to chime in on who you think your player was of the half. But I'm going to actually be picking Malisan Lima of Arada Armenia. He is a left winger. He is the reason why Jiara Shahoyan has not been getting minutes, and for good reason, I would say. He has 12 goals and 6 assists so far this season in 16 appearances. So he has 18 goal contributions in 16 appearances, which is over 1 a match. He has contributed to 51% of the goals scored by Arada Armenia in the league so far this season, and he has been, a revelation. Not only is that reflected in his transfer value, he is valued at $500,000, and that is the highest valued player in the entire Armenian Premier League. But he is definitely leading the charge for Arada Armenia's future European hopes. Whether or not he will stay with Arada Armenia after or not remains a mystery. I have a feeling he will, knowing that with this whole new conference league structure, knowing that he has a really good team around him. They have a decent manager. They're doing really, really well. I think he would stick around, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Who is your player of this half? Chadens, let's start with you.
Why would I not pick Kardashian without mentioning him every single episode? Unfortunately, with what happened with Sevan, but he was a crucial player in Sevan's defensive side. Therefore, he would be my go-to player.
Yeah, I don't think without him, Sevan definitely would not have been in the European spots that they were in, for sure. I think that's a good pick. Armen, what do you think? Who is your player of the half of this season?
I'm going to go with the APL goal scorer, Serge Deblay, because he has returned from a long spell in Denmark where he actually performed very well as well, like in Armenia. And he comes back to be coached again by Coach Bartan Bıçakçıyan, reuniting with the whole staff and players from Shirak Gyumri, and it's like he never left. He is by far the top goal scorer of the season, and in fact, he's the one keeping Ararat Yerevan's hopes of making Europe.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Honorable mention for me is going to be Jirar Margaryan, the left back for Ararat Yerevan, because he is currently the top assister in the league. He is killing it out there, made his Armenian national team debut. We're looking forward to seeing a lot more of him in the future.
So good, man. We're gonna talk Ararat Yerevan in a bit.
Yeah.
As a whole.
So wrapping up in Hayastan, we have the Armenian VBET Cup semifinals. That's going to be taking place not for a while. Is that in March?
April the 1st.
April the 1st.
Both semifinals simultaneously.
Yes.
It's going to be bloody.
Yes, we have Ararat versus Noravank in one leg, and then we have Urartu versus Van in the other. Just a reminder for everyone, this is going to be for a European place. The winner of the VBET Armenia Cup gets a place in the UEFA Conference League. Moving on to our next topic, we're going to discuss the women's national team. I'll hand this over to you, Ahmed.
Oof, hard one. I mean, it's never nice to come off two big defeats. But we did know it in a way because we knew beforehand that last November window was probably the most difficult fixture for the ladies so far since returning to competitive football after a whole decade of not competing. And we were always going to be most likely thrashed against both Belgium and Norway. The results were, they speak for themselves. 19-0 against Belgium and 10-0 against Norway, both losses, both top world-class teams. But so that explains it. But at the same time, even though we shouldn't focus on results, but rather on how to improve, always trusting the process, exactly, that should be the approach.
Key points.
Yeah, but that being said, we have discussed how Coach Sanamyan had previously made some big tactical mistakes. We did notice and mentioned and discussed throughout our previous episodes. Sadly, those mistakes have not been worked on. I don't know if they approached it or not, if they approached the mistakes we noticed and we try to solve on our show, but we're not the coach. The true fact is those things have not been seen on the pitch. A couple good things or interesting facts about the women's national team is that our center back Christina Alexanian got 2 clean sheets in the Women's Champions League. That is huge. Take a minute to think, to let that sink in. We don't have any men's national team players playing Champions League, at least for a couple years now. And all of a sudden, first year of women's national team playing competitively, and we already have one center back at that playing with our Champions League group stages. Sadly, speaking about Alexanian, we still haven't seen an Alexanian and Armenia Khachatrian center back duo play together yet. They are the 2 Armenians, by the way, that have played UEFA Champions League in the women's version. We are yet to see them, the 2 play together. When they do, it's going to be a big improvement for the national team, trust me. And the last interesting news is that we got 2 young newcomers from diaspora from the USA, more precisely, called up to the national team this last window, with several more coming for the next year. So again, this is a process, but Coach Sanamyan should not ignore the fact that we are seeing some big issues and some big mistakes that should be worked on. And that's it for the women's national team. We have other national teams
just to add something as well. Just to add something as well, just to explain to the listeners. The mistake that UEFA had made, that they realized after all these big scores, because Armenia was not the only team that conceded this many goals, basically with a big margin.
I think it was England beating Latvia,
I believe 20-0.
Latvia, yeah.
It's a big score, it's a big margin, and UEFA clearly realized this issue. And if I'm not mistaken, they are working on this new method, which is going to be like a UEFA Nations League style, just like we have for men's, so that they can have it more in order, in a way where it's more fair, the teams that play against each other.
But then again, that shouldn't excuse us.
No. Our results, that should not excuse. But because just to have a clear context, that will happen. Yeah. Well, we didn't score. That's one of the key.
Yeah, that's one of the
things that happened. Yeah, like we didn't score any goals.
Yeah, but the Belgian game, that not scoring is a big issue, different issue. But defensively speaking, the mistakes made, strategic and lineup mistakes made against Belgium were actually mostly fixed against Norway, which is a much harder team than Belgium. And we reduced the distance, the goal difference by half. So there's always things we can work on, and it was visible from the Belgium game worked on to the Norway game.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye out on the women's game and as it progresses. Like we said previously, we don't really have any real expectations, but we don't expect to lose 19-0. Hopefully the federation maybe reflects on that a little bit. And of course there are going to be growing pains, but it's just not, you should never be okay with that type of scoreline. Moving on to the Armenian under-18s. Chadin, tell us a little bit about what's been going on there.
As we mentioned it before, on our website, and we mentioned it often on Twitter, the FFA, they were planning on holding an unofficial friendly, and they did, for the U18 national team. They called up around 10 young players from the diaspora. On most of our youth camps for competitive games, we usually tend to have 2 to 5 diasporans tops. So this was a big change. Most high-profile clubs of origin include Zenit from Russia, from France, Metz, Troyes, and Lorient.
Is it pronounced Armenia? Trois? Is it Trois? Is that how Armen will correct me? Is it
oui.
Trois? All right.
Well, excusez-moi. Excusez-moi, mon frère. Armenia U18 played twice versus Belarus at home in Yerevan, with a 2-2 draw and a loss of 1-2 scoreline. The game analysis, Armen can mostly say this as well. Armenia they were more reliant on short passing football, as they often do, but not counting on too much of possession. They lacked of sync, considering most of the squad players play together for the first time. They don't really know each other. This is an issue. We have seen this kind of things in the men's national team. We're not really going to get into that, but if you've listened to us previously, you'd know this kind of affects communication on many levels. Belarus really dangerous on the counters and set pieces. This was their key thing. And Armenia was vulnerable. We should admit that. Armen, what are your thoughts?
As we usually are vulnerable,
yeah,
and
unfortunately,
counters, set pieces. This reminds me of how Ireland plays on senior national team, and Iceland plays they're very similar teams, and this Belarus team is a little U18 Belarus team is a little bit like that. So everything is connected. We are very much reliant on every national team we got on short passing, tiki taka, that kind of play, and we suck at set pieces.
Just seems to be an all across the board here, right? Not just sucking at set pieces. Maybe something the federation should take notes.
It's always the set pieces. It's always the set pieces.
Let's go 1 year up and speak about the Armenian U19s who made the elite round, as previously mentioned in our last show, and we were drawn into arguably the most difficult group. However, looking at all the groups in the U19 Euro qualifiers, every group is a hard group. So Armenia
it's not for the qualifiers. It's for the elite round.
Yeah, elite round for the European qualifier, for European
this is kind of confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they went through a preliminary round where Armenia got second place in the group behind Croatia. Now they got into the second round of qualifiers, where only first place makes it to the final tournament, which will be taking place next year. So Armenia will play against England, Portugal, and Ireland for a chance to make the UEFA U19 Euros. The last edition of the competition was held back in 2019. Was it 2019? Yeah, it was 2019.
Yeah, it was 2019. I was at the final. Yeah,
it was in Armenia. I actually landed.
Spain, I think against Portugal.
I landed in Armenia. I want to say right after the tournament had ended, or right before the tournament. Actually, right before the tournament, like I think a week before the tournament, I actually went back home. So I was there for a couple of weeks right before. Unfortunately, I didn't get to catch a game. But
damn.
Tough group, guys, right? England, Portugal, Ireland. It's
Portugal's the scariest.
Yeah.
For me, Portugal is the scariest.
Look, at the end of the day, like Armin said, it's the elite round. I mean,
we didn't with the best of the best.
And considering it's only 8 teams make it to this competition, which again, if UEFA is so hell-bent on expanding the format, why don't they expand youth formats so more youth teams get to compete instead of playing qualifiers once a year, getting your ass kicked, and then not playing for another year? I think it's kind of stupid.
Elite round is basically senior national team Euro group stages.
Yeah,
in a way, yeah, it's kind of like that. But not exactly.
Not technically.
They're kind of developing on it.
Like, okay, let's look. Hold on, I'm gonna look up this Portugal U19 team and let's just see. I'm curious to see where do these players play. I just want to
good luck seeing a lot of Porto, Sporting.
Good luck. Benfica.
Yeah, their academies are sick.
They have one kid that plays in Basel. He's a winger. One kid that plays for Mönchengladbach.
Well, I'm sure they get game time. That's the biggest factor. Not that they play in big teams, but they get game time. That's the biggest thing.
They probably do because Portugal loves to play their youth.
Oh, they don't just love it. It's their philosophy. They always play them. That's why they scare me the most because they're the most experienced.
There are some nations European nations that prioritize academies before anything else. I would name 5: Portugal, Switzerland, and of course Netherlands and Belgium, and you can add another one if you want, but
España.
Those 4, no, those 4 are like
for sure ones.
Completely
for sure ones.
I mean specialists, you know.
Yeah.
Those they do
it. Yeah, they import players from anywhere in the world as well as their domestic countries and raise them and export them to the best leagues in the world. Those 4 countries that not necessarily excel when it comes to senior national teams and whatnot, but their academies are sick, are the best in the world.
So that's how they're more experienced in everything. So it starts off with elite round.
Looking at the U19 England, I'm taking a look at their team right now. They're players from Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Liverpool, Juventus.
But they don't play.
But they don't
They
play.
don't often play.
However, they are.
They don't.
However, if they are where they're at, they're probably good. I mean, their last result was against Sweden, and they beat Sweden 2-0. So
No, they are good. It's just that comparison with
they're not
Portuguese
specialists.
youngsters, they're not. No, they don't often play as much as the Portuguese. A Portuguese team would have more confidence in playing their young Gonçalves rather than a young Smith for England.
So and Ireland, who is arguably the only team we can probably hope to get any points off of, is pretty much very similar to us. They have a lot of like domestic Irish people. They have a couple players they have 1, 2, 3 players in Premier League academies. Interestingly enough, they have 3 players that are completely outside of the UK. They have a goalkeeper at Schalke, a central defender at Wolfsburg, and a central forward at Inter Milan, who's actually 16 years old, playing with the U19s, which is pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, U19. Okay, still good. Yeah.
But you know what? I like our boys. I like our boys' chances, considering pretty much all of our entire U19 plays.
That could have been so misunderstood.
What are you talking? I like our boys.
Icelandics. Icelandics. Well, getting to the point, they're gonna be finished. The games, which are gonna be like mini tournaments, they're gonna be completed by 29th of March. So when we know the winners, they're gonna join Slovakia in the finals, which is gonna be from 18th of June until the 1st of June.
Yep.
And then this in a way will act like a final tournament for the Europe's qualifiers for the 2023 FIFA U20 World Cup in Indonesia.
Ooh, that's even. I think it's gonna be the same age group
because
of how it's how they progress. Just how people age, you know. It's pretty much going to be the same group. So very, very interested, very excited. Hopefully, the national team does well. Youth. What's up?
We got to talk about the UEFA Youth League. And
yes, we do. Our one player
participant this year. It's weird, right? Because each season of UEFA Youth League, we have one diasporan Armenian participating in some random top-notch European club.
Yes, and this one was no different. We had Bayern U19's Hrant Mamedova Yanosian, or otherwise known as Grant Leon Mamedova, who was knocked out of the UEFA Youth League. He's Bayern's top goal scorer in the U19 Bundesliga, but in the UEFA Youth League, he only had 3 appearances and he was unable to register a goal. Being a Bayern fan and obviously following their youth football, I could just tell from this season, for some reason, it didn't seem like a priority to them. I'm not sure why. I think losing the first 2 games just made them say, you know what, forget it. Like we're not just not going to deal with this competition anymore. But in slightly better news, Hrant seems to be nearing and edging closer and closer to first team at Bayern. He does have slight competition ahead of him. There's one other player who's also 18 years old who has made the first team and is a forward. But he's getting there. He trains with the senior squad during international breaks. He did preseason. We can anticipate maybe him breaking in next season to the first team. If not, maybe getting a loan to another Bundesliga or Bundesliga 2 club.
Exactly. Do you happen to know when his contract runs out?
He actually just signed an extension for like 3 more years. So he's at Bayern for a long time.
Why doesn't he go on loan for 1 year long loan?
He will
do that.
Bayern have their methodology, and it obviously works for a reason. They're successful for a reason, and that tends to be that when a player breaks into the first team, they'll play first team football with Bayern for a few months, and if they are exceptional, and I mean exceptional, and that we're talking Jamal Musiala, they stick around. If they're really good, but maybe this is what the Bayern brass is very good about, making the decision to say, you know what, this player is amazing, would be a great rotational player, get a few minutes off the bench. However, they would benefit better from playing elsewhere for a season. They'll send them off. Most of our Bayern players, I was just looking at Bavarian Football Works does this nice graphic of loan players, Bayern loan players, and what their performances are. They play pretty much everywhere. We have players in Bundesliga, Bundesliga 2, in actually Liga 1. There's like several, including one of our goalkeepers. Random top 10 European leagues. So
Yeah.
and they all and the good thing about Bayern is they would not loan a player out to a club unless they know that club is going to actually be playing their player. And they have actually recalled players from loan who weren't getting playtime, because that just defeats the entire purpose of the loan, right? So
similar to Portuguese, I think they do that as well.
That's German logic at its finest.
Yeah, so
like it's how things should be.
Hrant is doing really well. He has 7 goals and 4 assists in 19 appearances so far this season. He scored in the DFB Junior Pokal. He has 6 goals and 4 assists in the U19 Bundesliga. He's doing really well. So I think it's going to be a patience game. I don't anticipate him making his Bayern debut for a while. Maybe at the tail end of the season if Bayern wraps up the league early, which I don't think that's going to happen this year. But maybe we'll see him. Elsewhere, we have the Conference League, Armen, or you know what, Challenge. Well, this is Challenge. This is a little close at home. Anor Thorsi. How are they doing in the Conference League with our boy Hobo?
They were unfortunate. I was watching the last minutes of the game. Oh, it was so close. They could have got that win, and they would have gone through to the knockout rounds. Unfortunately, they missed out. If I'm not mistaken, by a point or 2, they missed out. So we're not going to have Hovhannes and Partsumian playing for the knockout rounds in European competition. However, Anorthosis is back in battling for a Conference League position in the league. Therefore, we're definitely looking forward to that.
Yes, so we only, as Chadin mentioned, have one Armenian player playing in European competition now, and that is Mkhitaryan. He qualified with Roma for the round of 16 in the Conference League. They're waiting for the playoff round to happen in a couple months' time to know who their round of 16 opponent is going to be. Elsewhere in Conference League, Kairat and Kamo Hovhannesyan were promptly got the shit kicked out of them and got knocked out, and it's rumored that Kamo's going to leave Kairat, but we'll talk about that a little later. And Alashkert finished off their very painful European campaign at home in Yerevan, where they tied 1-1 with who was it again? It was the side from Israel, correct?
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
There you go, Maccabi Tel Aviv. And they actually won Armenia's first ever point in European competition. So maybe that helped our coefficient. Maybe
Never expected that one to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, after the first few performances.
I don't know, maybe a bit it helped. Like tiny bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I have such a hard time understanding coefficients, honestly. I don't even look at them.
We should email UEFA.
Yeah, email them. Tell us, make us a nice little graphic video explaining coefficients.
I legit told them, if I want to email you, I cannot find your email. Please let me know. And they didn't inform me anything.
Oh yeah, of course they're not. All right. So moving on to one of our favorite segments here, which is Armenian players abroad. Speaking of Kamo Hovhannesyan and Kairat Almaty, they were in the Kazakh Cup final where they played Shakhtar Karagandi, Gevorg Najaryan's team, and they drew 3-3, but Kairat won in a penalty kick shootout. Kamo played the whole game and scored his penalty. Najaryan came on in the second half. He is still eligible to play for Armenia. I don't know. Armen is really pushy about this.
He is, and he would help us so much. Jesus.
I mean, any other player would. Any player would.
We have a defensive mid is. We're gonna get into this later, but defensive mid is where we lack the most.
Yes, I mean, look, no argument there. You're not going to get any arguments from me, but whatever. Well, sorry.
Wait.
Quick caveat. I was looking at the coefficients, and we got 1.875 coefficient points this season.
Whatever that means.
From Alashkert's European campaign, we are currently ranked 41st out of 55. So I mean, I guess it could work.
Okay, that's all right.
But funnily enough, this isn't the most points we've earned. Actually, far from it. In the 1920 season, that was when Armenia made their crazy run to the playoffs. We actually got 2.75 coefficient points. So Armenia,
this Ararat Armenia reminds me of that Ararat Armenia from 1918.
1918, yeah.
You get the idea.
So despite
I suck at math.
Despite not even playing in a group stage, Ararat Armenia managed to get more coefficient points for Alashkert than Alashkert did playing in an actual group stage.
Let that sink in.
Yeah, wrap that one around your head.
And next season, Ararat Armenia is gonna do the same and hopefully even better.
Yes, and speaking of doing even better, someone who is just doing the complete opposite, which is worse every time we check in with him, Briasco Balagyan of Boca Juniors made it to the Argentina Cup final, which he promptly won and proudly has a winner's medal around his neck, but did not play a single minute. After that, all of the Boca boys got onto a plane and took this awesome trip to Spain where they were playing against FC Barcelona in the Diego Maradona Cup. And Balagyan was the only forward and midfielder that did not play in that match. So things are going just awesome for Norberto in his decision to stay at home in Boca instead of expanding his horizons and going abroad. But you know what? I'll digress. I think we've already made our opinion very clear that he should have picked, as good as Boca is, he should have picked the European club.
Yep.
Armen?
He should have been to Las Palmas. Yeah.
There's a few players that you've been very keen about. You want to take these ones?
Finally, I get some good news.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't think it's necessary at this point to really elaborate much on Edward Spertian. He's shining, is driving everyone crazy in Russia. Like literally, they are so sad and bringing it up like time and again. Why didn't he choose us? Well, he's Armenian, baby. That's it. Elsewhere, with more statistics, actual statistics, we got Vaham Bechakjian, Artur Avagimian, and Artur Galoyan all over Eastern Europe, in Slovakia, Ukraine, and Russia, respectively. They keep scoring, assisting, shining. They are their team's best players by far. Talk about healthy habits, right, Chema? All three of them, I like to draw comparisons and stuff. All three of them will be in the eye of several European clubs. They already are, actually. We have mentioned all of this before, and we will. But this winter transfer window, most of them will be transferred out. We're gonna get to that later on with the transfer rumors and stuff. And even though this is not a player, technically, he was a player though. He is an Armenian abroad. We're talking about Coach Michel de Zakarian in France, leading his team Brest. An insane.
Brest.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Je suis la baguette. Oh la la, sacre bleu. And Brest is having an insane season with a huge, okay, maybe I think they have lost already and broke that streak, but they went on a 7-game undefeated streak, which for Brest is sick. Is like le sick, because they're a minnow in Ligue 1. and you wouldn't expect them to go 7 games undefeated. But that's not the headline though. They actually, listen to this. They actually beat Marseille 1-2 away at the Velodrome in like the Armenian home of Western Europe, that is Marseille, and that was huge. I mean, Michel Zakarian's sides are usually known for kind of fluking out by the end of the season and whatnot, like losing their grip. But he was really ultimately he was hired to save the team from relegation, and well, they're they're like they're getting the job done and very well done. Beating Marseille is no joke.
He's currently, after 18 matches played in the league, Brest have 6 wins, 6 draws, and 6 losses.
That's great for them.
25 goals scored, 27 goals conceded, so the -2 goal differential. They sit on 24 points, 1 point ahead of Olympique Lyon. So,
Jesus, think that he was hired to save the team from relegation.
And they're actually 1 point behind Lille, and 1 point behind Nantes, and 1 point behind Angers. So technically, with a win, they can jump as high as 8th place, which is crazy. So, actually high, yeah. They can jump as high as 7th place, actually, with a win, and if other results go their way. So they're very much in the mix, which is very exciting to see.
It's not the only thing we can have in France, though, is it?
Chadens, what else do we have in France?
Oh boy, this is unfortunate. Yeah, this unfortunate thing, but there's obviously hope. Gormanvelian keeps making the bench for Nantes, Armin, you go for it, but still can't manage to get onto the pitch.
Yeah, but then again, as Michel Zakarian's streak broke, Gormanvelian's streak of being on the bench is over as well. He's lately not featured really, so that's not good news.
Yeah, I mean, look, he'll make his debut at some point this season. We'll see it. It'll happen. We just need to be patient.
Actually, I've been reading around and on social, and geez, I sound like a teenager on social.
No teenager says that. Just so you know. Okay. No teenager says I'm on social. I read social.
Really though, Nantes fans really love Gore and are in a very bad way surprised that he isn't featuring at all or given chances at all, and they are already vouching in a way, like pushing agenda to have him go on loan and get some minutes and come back to Nantes a made man the way it usually is for youth players with like talents like Gore.
I don't know, man. Young Armenians and France, I don't know if that's worked out in our favor in the past. Hopefully this one's different.
That's a cheap shot.
I know. Well, you gotta take it where you can. Speaking of cheap shots, there is nothing cheap about our next topic, which are transfers and transfer rumors, the money makers, the deals. Speaking of the deals and making money and not buying a better fashion sense because of it, Tigran Barsakan has signed a 3-year deal with Slovan Bratislava in Slovakia, worth 2.5 million euros. He was bought for 2.5 million euros, correct? From Astana, Armin?
Yeah, and honestly, 2.5 million euros for Tico seems like very cheap. And in very well Eastern European fashion, I bet there was more behind it.
Yeah, I'm sure some shit was going here and there.
Plus, he reportedly said he chose Slovan over Russian teams and elsewhere because of the money. So
yeah,
and it was top Russian clubs interested in him, like Spartak Moscow.
Yeah, and Slovan was in the Conference League. They unfortunately had to win their last match in order to continue, and they did not. So
they're an interesting team on that aspect.
They're currently top of the league by 3 points. They still have a game in hand. They're probably going to win the league. They're probably going to be in Champions League qualifiers. So it's very likely that they will make European competition again next season, which is expected by Slovan.
Exactly.
I went on their Twitter profile, and you know what their Twitter header is?
Dude.
The team that beat Barcelona in the European Cup finals like 1960 something, and I was like, okay, Jesus Christ.
Love it.
Elsewhere, we have some interesting rumors of that were swirling around of Henrik Mkhitaryan and potentially leaving AS Roma for another side in Italy. But since those rumors actually surfaced, Mourinho had actually changed Mkhitaryan's role into a more central role from a winger, and he's been playing as a number 10 for AS Roma, and they have since been slapping everyone left, right, and center. Roma are currently they are pretty much in the title race, actually, and said, I don't think they'll win, but very possible that they can get a Champions League place. They are currently only 5 points behind Napoli and 6 points behind Atalanta, who hold third and fourth place respectively. So Jose Mourinho and Roma pushing for a European spot, and I highly, highly doubt Henrik will leave. We'll see. I mean, I think the change to number 10 for Henrik, it was the game changer. I've read it in different Roma forums. I've seen it on social media. That was the catalyst move. Playing Henrik in a deeper role, letting him be the transitioner. It's made a world of a difference. I don't know. Maybe the national team can take note. This one, Armen, I'll let you take on because I know you're very excited about this one. Tell us about Galoyan, not Galoyan, right? Galoyan.
The usual joke. Okay, yeah. This is the first of the two big news we got today, other than Tikov moving to Slovan, which is not as big as this, in my opinion, because this is a huge rumor. Apparently, Artur Galoyan, about whom we've been talking, his transfer market increased since our last show from like 600,000 euros to 800,000, almost a million. But that's not the most interesting thing. A wild, and I mean wild, fight for his services has unfolded, including teams like Lokomotiv Moscow, Rostov, our very well-known Armenian like Rostov, Ufa, also in Russia, a minnow in the Russian Premier League, and hear this, Belgian Giants, Ghent. That was huge to hear. Interesting facts. I don't know. Ufa say they want him. They want him so bad that they're gonna try to sell more than one player to from their squad to get extra cash to splash for Artur, for our young Armenian talent, who, by the way, repeatedly expressed his desire to play for Armenia and Armenia alone. This has caused kind of very much unhappiness within Russian Federation circles. Among other results, his move 6 months ago to CSKA Moscow, which was basically a done deal with the former CSKA coach Ivica Olic. You guys remember, especially Aram from Bayern Munich.
Oh yeah, he was one of my favorite forwards at Bayern.
Well, he was the coach that wanted to bring Artur Galoyan to CSKA, and he said on press conference that he was very happy with what he saw from him, and he was very happy to have him at CSKA. Well, guess what happened? They froze him out, and 6 months later, here we are with him almost on the verge of going to Belgium. So talk about silver linings. Hopefully it will happen, though.
I think it's a positive. The farther he gets away from the Russian sphere of influence, the better for Armenia. And Ghent, of course, as previously mentioned not too long ago on this show, they are in European competition. They were in the same group as Hovos Anatorsi. So he will be in a European squad. He'll be playing in a very good league. I think this is a win-win. And he actually, I'm not sure if you knew this, Armen, he actually confirmed talks yesterday.
they're pretty much advanced already.
Yeah. So
hopefully
he said
it happens though. Hopefully it goes.
No signature yet, as of yet.
Exactly.
But he did confirm, and so did the president of his club, Veles Moscow, also confirmed talks. So
yeah, he's very close.
We'll see. I feel like he's someone that is a lot smarter than most. Just that's the sense I'm getting. Hopefully he makes the right decision. I'm sure Lokomotiv. And
he wants to go to Ghent. I don't think it's gonna be up to him. I don't know how things work and like in those spheres, the business, the lawyering thing. But if it was up to him, he said, if it's up to me to go, if I get an offer from Western European big team like Ghent, I will take it. So I think he's waiting for the final offer to come.
Yeah. So hopefully that comes soon. Another player that we've actually been talking about, that we've mentioned several times, who we're kind of dumbfounded hasn't been in the Armenian national team picture, is Arthur Avagimyan.
Another Arthur.
Yeah, who plays for Chornomets in the Ukraine. Former Ukraine under 16, 17, and 19 international. Former Alashkert player, which we've discussed already previously about how his trials and tribulations with Alashkert, like every other young Armenian player, is currently rumored to be in the interest of other Ukrainian Premier League side, notably who, Armen?
He is reportedly, and this is still a rumor, but a pretty serious one, and not the first time he's been in contact with them, Alexandria team. Alexandria, that a couple years ago was almost going to sign Pedro Savedisyan from Ararat Armenia. The deal broke down, and now they're going after Artur Avagimyan for the second time in 6 months. Apparently, after his last goal against Metalist, which we covered on our Instagram, he has reportedly privately, came to an agreement with the top Ukrainian side that is fighting for European competitions. Probably not going to make it because they're on the odd side of the fight, but still, pretty good move for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, it could only benefit him.
Happens.
Of course, I would rather see him play for Zorya or Dinamo or Shakhtar, but I mean, wherever he can get to.
I don't think he's returning to Shakhtar, and given his Shakhtar history, I don't think he's gonna go to Dinamo.
Yeah. So, elsewhere, we have some other interesting rumors that are swirling around that got called out a couple days ago. Urartu and former Urartu winger, former Bekma and Armenia under-21 captain Nadek Grigorian has reportedly been getting interest from Belgian sides. No specifics. We don't know about Belgium. So suddenly there's this peak of interest from Belgium, which got me thinking, maybe there's an Armenian somewhere in Belgium that just so happens to keep tabs on Armenian players. Because
there's a big Armenian community in both Belgium and Switzerland. If we're talking about Western European countries with
Armen, you gotta give a little context to big. What do you mean by big? You say this about every country.
Not geographical. It's not everything's geographical. You gotta think in terms of influence. Like if there's someone in a team or in something, we have one.
Yeah,
we have one in a team.
We have this coach, challenge yourself in Belgium. In Switzerland, we got Artur Petrosyan, who is like in the know-how of everything regarding our former senior national team, Armenian national team coach, Artur Petrosyan. You guys remember him? He's in the know-how and inner circles of two big Swiss teams and young boys. And no, that's not a joke. That's an actual big team in Switzerland. And Zurich.
Oh
so we got some people here and there.
You see, that's good.
Yeah, and not to mention, we have former Armenian national team player Ivan Yagan, who is
the whole Yagan family in
Belgium. The whole Yagan family play in Belgium, and Ivan is actually Also involved in Armenia, right? At the club level, he's been. Isn't he a part owner of one of the clubs now?
No, I think it's his brother or cousin, Harac, I believe, Harac Yagan, that played in Standard Liège, which is also a big. Yeah. Standard Liège is a big team in Belgium, and Harac.
Oh, for sure.
Harac was a defensive mid that played a great season there at one of the biggest teams in Belgium. And for some reason, I don't know what happened, because I was a teenager back then and I was thinking about other things. But he basically stopped playing and went to Armenia, played a little bit here and there at the APL, but mostly became a shareholder for Ararat Yerevan now.
Yeah, interestingly, he finished off his career in Switzerland. He was there for the last 4 years of his career. Retired kind of early. Yeah. He did play for Armenia twice. He made his debut in 2009. He had 29 minutes against Moldova and 16 minutes against Bosnia. Interesting.
I bet injuries was what happened.
Probably. I mean, knowing Ivan was always injured too. That's why he hardly played for the national team. So
it's a family thing.
Yeah, apparently. Another set of big news. Football Kentron future stars. Armen Hovhannisyan is currently being followed by clubs from Poland, Kazakhstan, and other European leagues. The well-rounded 21-year-old striker from FC Ararat Armenia is unhappy with his situation after he had a successful loan spell in Slovakia. Then he went to Ganzasar, who, of course, due to geopolitical reasons, disbanded and ended up in Ararat Armenia and has played little to no senior minutes. I think it would be a win if he leaves. Poland, of course, would probably be the ideal destination.
Even a minnow in Polish Ekstraklasa.
Yeah, would be good. So I think hopefully we could see something there, but we'll just keep tabs on that one. And stay tuned for our next shows, which will be
more
during the transfer window when that opens in January. We're going to take
exactly 2 weeks from our recording.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more transfers. But now for the big news, for the big part, for the big feature of this episode, the UEFA Nations League. Armenia was drawn into Group B1 in the UEFA Nations League after a successful campaign last time out, where we edged out North Macedonia to gain promotion from League C to League B, and Armenia were drawn into a group with Scotland, Ireland, and the Ukraine. Now, boys, considering who we could have drawn and who else was in League B, I know a lot of us were secretly hoping for Russia. What are your initial thoughts? We'll start with you, Chadens. What are your initial thoughts on the group? Don't give me predictions. Just when you look at this group, what are your thoughts?
Very good leveled teams. 3 of them have different things to tackle, different things to challenge that Armenia has to face. And if we get this right, then hopefully we're going to be on a good path.
Armen, what are your initial thoughts? Just a quick synopsis.
I was and still am satisfied, happy in a way. Definitely.
Yeah, so we have, it's a very interesting group. Now we'll dive a little deeper. We have 3 teams that, one, we feel, I think I could comfortably say this, one we feel is beatable in Ireland. I think the one we're most evenly matched with. Yeah. One in Scotland is better than us, but is still beatable. And then we have
a good day.
And on a good day, and then we have the Ukraine, who is going to be the well-oiled machine type team in our division that we don't expect to get a point off of. But it's kind of a team structure that we can look at and say, hey, you know what? They're clearly doing something right because of how good they are as a team. They don't really have that many standout players. but they're a well-oiled machine. So we have this spectrum. We have a very, very good team, a European Championship team. We have Scotland, who is also a European Championship team, but they seem to. It feels to me as though they seem to just somehow get there, and they don't even know how they got there. That's just the sense in general.
They don't. They're not consistent. They cannot keep the same kind of pattern the way they usually do and play.
And then we have Ireland, who, of course, I mean, if you're like me, and I'm sure if you listen to this show, you probably are, you have been waiting to see Ireland in the same group as Armenia ever since that match in European qualifiers. That famous European Euro 2012 qualifying match that if Armenia had won, would have gotten second place and played in the playoff. The wrongful red card, that was the controversy, the Thierry Henry handball gift to Ireland that gifted them a place in the Euros. That was extremely frustrating, but I'm really excited to be playing them again.
We're coming back.
Now let's talk about expectations. Considering, we'll talk about scheduling after this, but generally, don't think about scheduling. Looking at this group, what are your expectations? Where do you expect Armenia to finish in this group? Challenge.
Statistically speaking, third
place. Okay,
well,
that wasn't a confident third. That was not a confident third.
Because there's a lot of things at play, because we're talking about something that is in 6 months, and in 6 months we can get a whole different we can get a whole different kind of team. They can get a whole different kind of team. So it's very early to predict, but I'm just looking at the teams. I'm just looking at that picture, and I'm still thinking, I don't know. Stuff. Third, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's too early.
Amen. What are your thoughts? What do you think? What's your expectations? Where do you expect Armenia to finish in this group?
Third or fourth, of course. Third or fourth. I mean, they're both equally realistic, in my opinion. We are still the weaker, speaking objectively and realistically. We are still the minnows, the lesser team and weaker team. But
we're the team that everyone wanted to draw. Everyone wanted us in their group.
No, I mean, both Ireland and ourselves are. Because Ireland we're the weaker from part 3, and we were the weaker from part 4. So in a way, everyone and Ireland was expecting or was hoping to get drawn against us, and everyone and us were expecting or hoping to get Ireland. So in a way, it's a match made in heaven, and it's gonna be, aside from the whole 10 years ago game, realistically, it's gonna be the two most evenly matched teams between Ireland and ourselves.
Yes. Now let's discuss schedule. The schedule is released one day after the qualifying draw was made, and we have, of course, because of the FIFA World Cup next year being held in November and December, have a very, very interesting schedule here. We're going to be playing 4 matches in June and then 2 matches in September. So we're going to have it's not as spread out as we would have hoped it was, but we start away to Scotland on June 4th. Then we go home to the Republic of Ireland on June 7th. Then we go away to Ukraine, which is thankfully a short journey for us, on the 11th, 4 days later. And then we round off June at home to Scotland. And then in September, we are home to the Ukraine. And then we travel away on the last match day again to the Republic of Ireland. Tough schedule, guys. 10 days, 4 matches in June. We're expecting a lot of rotation here, right? And how is that rotation going to play into all of this? I mean, we have Ukraine, who's arguably our toughest team in the third match, which we expect to see a rotated team. And then a few days later, we have Scotland at home, which is a game that we would hope to get a point off of. And you want your players well rested for that.
Read my mind.
Your Kaparos, what do you do? Do you just say, screw it? I mean, we're not going to beat Ukraine. Let's just play a rotated team. Let's rest our guys for Scotland.
Damn mind.
How would you guys approach this schedule?
Bro, man management and minute management is just as much a part of sports as strategy, squad depth, and everything else. Fatigue is ever important. Managing fatigue levels within your players. So, and this is not the politically correct thing to say, but who gives a rat's ass about that? Let's be real here, because that's the Football Kentron way. We tell it like it is. The Ukraine game away on June the 11th. It's not just the hardest game. Like, we're probably gonna get trashed anyway. Might as well. We have 2 key games before that, and basically one of the finals after that, like 3 days after that. I think it doesn't even need to be said. It couldn't be implied.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? It's how it is.
Now, looking at the schedule, obviously, I think 2 dates spring to the top of my list, at least, and that is the home game against Ireland and our final match day, which is away to Ireland. Now, seeing as though it's looking like they're going to be our direct rivals in this group for that coveted third place to stay in League B, those 2 matches are the matches that we're going to have to win. I mean, it's going to be 6. We need 6 points, and we need Scotland and Ukraine to just absolutely ravage Ireland. That's what we can hope for. And if we can nick a point at home against Scotland on the 14th, I think that should be enough to keep us in League B. Hopefully.
And it's doable. And it's doable if we play our cards right.
Look, we're a drawing machine, apparently. If there's any team that could draw against a team like Scotland, who in our group chat yesterday, we kind of started equating the teams to our World Cup qualifying groups, and we said, or at least I said, that to me, it feels like Scotland feels like the Romania of this group, which is a team that is, for us, very beatable, and even on a bad day, we won't lose to them that hard. That's what I feel about Scotland.
I don't know.
About Ireland,
I still haven't assessed Scotland's play really.
Well, we'll get there when we do our in-depth previews. And Republic of Ireland, I equate it to Iceland, who was in pot 1 that we could have actually drawn, but we didn't. We got Ukraine instead. Is the team that should be beatable. We should be getting at least 4 points out of 6 against them. And Ukraine is, of course, going to be the big dog in this team that we are probably not going to be getting anything off of them. And I guess that's fine. But you know what? A hopeful point against Ukraine at home, or a hard fought away point. Who knows?
The home game seems a little bit more realistic because we have only 2 games during that window, and we are a team that relies much more on chemistry and man management than the Ukraine that everyone plays like at elite level already. They don't care as much about rotation, and that's why they are what they are, where they are. So during that 2-game window, I think we can make a difference there.
Well, see, during that, so in that first set of games, in match day 2, while we're home to the Republic of Ireland, Scotland and Ukraine are going to be playing against each other, and they're going to both be playing their first teams. So in that first match, Scotland's going to want to win, so they're going to play their best team against us on match day 1. They're going to play their best team against the Ukraine, and Ukraine's going to do the same. They're playing Ireland. They're going to want to start off strong. They're playing Scotland, who's their direct rival to win this group and win promotion to League A. They're going to want to play their best team. And then we're going to get to the third match day, and we're both going to probably be playing heavily rotated squads. So granted, their quality is much better than ours. But you just never know what's going to happen. But I agree with you in that home game in the second window in September might be the better opportunity.
Yeah, and the real final, as you mentioned a little while ago, a short while ago, is going to be the two matchups, the two legs against Ireland. During the first window, the 4-game window, that second game day for us, June the 7th against Ireland at home in Yerevan, that's going to be the final for us. That's where we have to play our best team, and that doesn't necessarily mean, as we always say, that doesn't necessarily mean play your most expensive players, play your best players, quote unquote. No, you got to play the ones that you know will help the team the most. And against a team like Ireland, you can perfectly draw comparisons and deploy something very similar or as similar as you could to the team that beat Iceland and dominated Iceland at home 2-0.
Yeah. So overall, I think it's safe to say our goal, our objective as Armenia is very likely, despite what the Federation tells you, is to stay in League B. It's not to get promotion. It's not to get relegated. It's to stay put. Now, in terms of how this affects European qualifiers, that is yet to be determined. UEFA is going to be releasing that in June prior to the start of the competition. But it is very likely that it's going to be similar to how it was with the World Cup, where the teams that win the league will be put into a quote unquote like playoff type tier ranking, or they could go how they did it for the last time, which was that tournament system that they did. But who knows how they're going to do it, honestly.
This whole Nations League thing, like the introduction of the Nations League, altering everything, every sort of fixture there was, and now they want to introduce South American teams to the Nations League. What the hell, man?
Yeah,
get a grip with
that's a cash grab. We will talk about that in a minute. So
Jesus.
again, UEFA Nations League, that's going to start in June. So we have a long ways to go. But until then, we do have a friendly in March against Lithuania. Hopefully they announce one more friendly by then. I'm sure they will. And we can just see a couple of new faces in action. It's kind of the hope. And yeah, so to wrap up today's episode, we're going to talk about a little bit about the deep changes in Armenian football in this next year that we're expecting. So we closed our last show with some big news about PSV coming to an agreement of potentially opening an academy in Armenia in 2022. And we're going to close today's show with some more big news concerning Armenian football. So there was a new stadium inaugurated in the town of Armavir by the FFA with the support of FIFA and UEFA. This was a very big project. 688 million dirhams were spent, about 1.2 million euros, most of which was allocated by the FFA. And the announcement was made by FFA President Armen Melikbekyan. Armen?
Yes. So according to President Melikbekyan, FC Sadarabat, which is the new club joining the FFA in professional competitions next season, one of the new teams at least since Sevan dropped, Sadarabat's youth teams will use the Armavir complex to train. So Mr. Melikbekyan also stated that for one of the Armenian Premier League teams, they will be chosen to hold their home games in Armavir, in the new stadium, from around the times for March to May, to keep the Republican Stadium in better conditions ahead of the all-important national team games, the Nations League. So the grass is healthier, greener, and playable. considering already too many games from the APL are played at the Hanrabedagan, the Republican Stadium already, as well as actually Avan Academy Stadium, where most of the youth national team games are played. So Armavir Stadium and the complex as a whole will, in a way, balance things out for the Republican Stadium and Avan Academy Stadium. On a parallel note, actually, it will also be bringing more traffic and tourism into the town of Armavir. That's beautiful, which is basically the federalization and democratization of the country, like tourism outside of Yerevan, which was vastly needed. Armenia was, as most people know, hardly anything outside of Yerevan until now, but not anymore. This move comes as one of the ways to help that. And the Armavir Stadium is going to be where the U21 national team will play the upcoming home games, at least for the time being, right? So, in fact, summing up, in 2022 already, the upcoming, as we said, Armenia U21 game against the Ukraine. So, again, why do we get the Ukraine everywhere already? And Ireland in the U19, well, paths crossed. Okay, we will be playing the Ukraine on the new pitch. This reminds me of how in the Ukraine, that new sensational club, Kolos Kovalivka, gray and black, that played European football, they saw the Ukraine U21 beat us in the first leg and take the 3 points after a 2-1 win, which we actually played pretty well. So yeah, keep this in mind, save the date, because after that first game at Kolos Stadium in the Ukraine, I would say that a fairly competitive game is to be expected. And adding on to the show, and honestly, seeing how we play, why not take the 3 points for ourselves in the new stadium, right? So that's very important. If you're in Armenia by that time, please go watch the game, the U21 national team game against Ukraine. But in other news, the reconstruction of the stadium in Vanadzor, in another city, in another town, should be done by the end of March 2022 as well. So March is going to be packed for Armenian football. And another one in Abovian, but this one will be around May. That's when it's going to be ready. So, bottom line, counting these two stadiums, Abovian Stadium and Vanadzor Stadium, adding on to the aforementioned one in Armavir, the complex, the new big complex, this would all mean that we would have 3 pretty modern and modernized pitches and complexes that range a capacity of from 3,000, to 5,000 capacity. That's nice. All 3 of them, in my opinion, will be looking for Conference League in European football. So that's a pretty big step, in my opinion, for Armenian football.
Yeah, and this also comes after, we had this discussion maybe several episodes ago now about the possibility of the FFA looking into the possibility of opening a new national team stadium, and that was put on the back burner due to the war, and that is currently still being explored and will very likely come to fruition at some point, which will be, a new UEFA, at least, Class 2 or Class 1 stadium where we can host Europa League finals, Champions League finals, Conference League finals, and that's where the national team home games will be played. But we're not trying to play sides here, but what the current federation and what Mr. Melik Bekyan is doing in terms of infrastructural progress in Armenia is insane. It's incredible. And not only are they building stadiums, they're building pitches. They've built 81 different pitches across the country, all focused outside of Yerevan. And we had this conversation when we had Anna Tadevosyan on, and she gave us a little bit more insight about how the federation realized that, sure, Yerevan's great and all, but there is so much talent to tap into outside, and not only talent and expressing, allowing little girls to express themselves in a different way, and helping make cultural and social strides and progressions.
It's what's fair,
Exactly. So our time seems to be coming. Hopefully 2022 will be a better year for Armenia in not just footballing terms, but in general. And let's see what happens. Guys, this was our last show of the year. Is there anything you want to add to the listeners before we sign off?
Happy holidays first and foremost, right?
Yeah, happy holidays to everyone. Chadens, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Well, we're hoping for big things, like Aram, you said, for our country, and also for footballing terms for our country, but also for better things that we can provide and help you guys with, to listen to follow, and to learn more about our football that we love to share and write about.
Yes, and on that note, don't forget to follow us on all of our social medias. We have a website. Challenge works really hard in updating that. Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already, and Instagram. We're on Facebook. We upload all of our episodes on YouTube, so click subscribe there as well. And on behalf of everyone here, on behalf of Tito, who is not with us today, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. Happy New Year, guys.
We celebrate Haftanak.
Yeah, we celebrate Happy Haftanak. That's what we celebrate. We'll see you guys in 2022. All the love from Football Kentron. Peace.